There is absolutely zero doubt in my mind. Rachel Meghan Markle was a semi expensive yacht girl, and she knows it.
Many of you have seen this picture already. You see that there's Meghan with her Cayuna hat.
One single line flipped the palace upside down. A quiet whisper turned into royal chaos, blindsiding Prince Harry and dragging Meghan Markle into one of the most jaw-dropping rumors the monarchy's ever seen. It began so casually, just a chat over tea, a sly smirk from Fergie, and then boom. A reporter caught the words that would light the fuse. Meghan was Andrew's first client.
Everything happened because of Fergie.
That sentence hit like thunder. Suddenly, headlines exploded across the globe, timelines flooded, and within hours the internet was in full meltdown mode. Meghan's yacht days wasn't just trending, it was dominating every corner of social media.
Meghan Markle was introduced by Sarah Ferguson to Prince Harry.
People couldn't believe what they were hearing, and every outlet wanted a piece of the story. But here's where it gets wild. This rumor didn't crawl out from the dark corners of the web. It came straight from the inner royal circle. The same people who once smiled for cameras together were now whispering secrets behind palace walls. Every journalist, every insider, every fan started asking the same question. How deep did this really go?
He said Miss Markle was a close companion to Prince Andrew.
The calm royal facade had cracked, and what spilled out shook Buckingham Palace to its very core. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess who survived more royal exiles than anyone alive, suddenly dropped a hint so dark it froze Buckingham Palace in its tracks. The woman once silenced, shunned, and somehow reborn from scandal after scandal was now back. And this time, she wasn't playing nice. Behind those polished smiles and polite gestures, insiders say Fergie was whispering things that made even the palace's most loyal staff go pale.
Meghan Markle was introduced through Marcus Anderson to Sarah Ferguson.
Harry was said to be stunned, Meghan reportedly speechless, and the palace? Pure panic mode. That so-called iron wall of silence the firm hides behind began to crumble, piece by piece, as everyone asked the same explosive question. What did Fergie mean by first client? Why would she drop something like that now of all times? Could Meghan Markle, the Hollywood actress turned Duchess, really have crossed paths with Andrew's notorious inner circle before the royal fairy tale began? The idea alone sent shockwaves through Windsor's corridors. This wasn't just gossip. It was a potential ticking time bomb aimed straight at the heart of the monarchy. Every whisper, every side glance during those royal events suddenly felt loaded with tension, the air thick with suspicion. Because if Fergie really knew something,
according to people, she got started her yachting days and she never stopped really. I don't think any of her boyfriends knew about it, but Meghan Markle was known as a hardcore yacht partying person, ready for anything.
And if she said it on purpose, she might have just set fire to the palace's best-kept secret. And it all started like any ordinary royal weekend. Charity luncheons, forced smiles, and layers of rehearsed charm. No one knew the storm that was about to hit. Beneath all the royal sparkle, something dangerous was bubbling. Long before the public ever caught on, whispers about Sarah Ferguson's unguarded moment had already slithered their way through a few high-placed insiders. At first, no one wanted to believe it. Fergie had survived more media fires than anyone in the game. She knew exactly how a single misplaced word could set off a royal inferno. But this time, she didn't seem to care one bit. At a private Mayfair gathering, surrounded by a mix of old-money aristocrats and sharp-eared journalists, Fergie reportedly let something slip that hit like thunder across the marble halls.
She was a yacht girl. That's right. It's mentioned in the book. Meghan used to entertain as a yacht girl. Now, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it happened, but I am saying Harry knows it.
With that mischievous grin she's famous for, she said, "People forget, Meghan's first royal connection wasn't Harry." The entire room froze. Glasses stopped mid-air. Someone gave a shaky laugh, assuming it was one of her cheeky jokes. But the look in her eyes said otherwise. Within minutes, that single moment turned electric. By the time dessert was served, phones were already buzzing. Texts flew through Kensington and Windsor, carrying one dangerous phrase, Andrew's first client. It spread from private chats to newsroom drafts, then burst across social media like wildfire. Inside the palace, panic quietly took over. "It can't be true," one insider whispered, claiming Harry refused to even acknowledge it.
And I wonder if Prince Andrew's going to come out and say, "Hey, Harry, I did your wife quite a few times on yachts before you got her."
He'd heard plenty of rumors before, but this one cut differently. This time, it didn't come from tabloids or trolls. It came from inside the royal circle itself, from someone who knew Andrew's world better than anyone alive. And that's when everyone realized this wasn't just another scandal. This was a spark that could expose everything the palace fought to bury. In a matter of hours, what started as a bit of gossip exploded into a full-blown credibility crisis. By midnight, royal correspondents were already connecting the dots, linking Meghan's old Hollywood past to Andrew's infamous yacht gatherings, those shadowy events that the palace never wanted mentioned again.
And we also have this. This is Karina Shuliak, Epstein's girlfriend.
And the only times she traveled and went anywhere was with him. And guess who's in the other end with her Panama hat?
Reporters went into overdrive, while the firm's PR team scrambled behind the scenes, muttering their classic line, "No comment." But this time, silence wasn't going to save them. Behind those gilded palace doors, one dangerous question began to boil under the surface. Was Fergie finally exposing a secret the monarchy had buried, or was she settling an old score? And if revenge really was her motive, then this was just the opening act of something explosive. Because before there were tiaras, royal titles, and Montecito mansions, Meghan Markle belonged to a completely different world, one fueled by ambition, charm, and pure survival. Hollywood in those days was brutal to newcomers, and Meghan learned that fast. Between red carpet appearances, small-time acting gigs, and endless charity galas, she wasn't just showing up, she was strategizing every move like a chess master.
Jeffrey Epstein was also Harvey Weinstein, very prominent. There were members. Meghan Markle was just one of the working girls for Soho House. Call girl, working girl, escort, whatever you want to call it. That's what she was.
Friends from that era remember her magnetic presence. The way she could walk into a crowded room full of producers and, by the end of the night, everyone somehow knew her name. She wasn't just another actress, she was a brand in the making. Behind that flawless smile, though, was a hunger to climb, to be seen, to escape the invisible trap that swallowed so many dreamers in Los Angeles. Meghan knew how to adapt, how to mirror power, and how to make people feel like she belonged in every room she entered. But that skill, that ambition, those same traits that built her up, might now be the very thing tearing her royal image apart. The circles Meghan moved in weren't just Hollywood glam. They brushed dangerously close to royal edges. Celebrities, producers, and even a few royal-adjacent personalities often found themselves mingling at the same exclusive events, where power and gossip flowed smoother than the champagne.
Prince Andrew, have you noticed how he completely avoids looking at Meghan Markle when she's around him or when she was around him?
Among those glittering gatherings were the elite yacht parties. Lavish floating playgrounds where deals were whispered, introductions sealed, and sometimes reputations quietly destroyed. These weren't the wild scenes tabloids like to exaggerate, but they weren't clean either. Behind every polished smile was a silent exchange, an unspoken favor, a whispered name that could change someone's career overnight. Insiders claimed Meghan had attended a few of those yacht gatherings while still climbing her way up, hungry for exposure and eager to mingle with the elite who could open doors no agent ever could. There was no solid evidence, just fragments of sightings, grainy photos, and nameless sources. But it didn't matter. The ambiguity was what made it dangerous. That very fog of half-truths gave Fergie's words their venom. By tying Meghan's so-called yacht days to Prince Andrew's infamous social circle, Sarah Ferguson didn't just stir gossip. She detonated a narrative bomb that rewrote Meghan's past in the public eye. To the tabloids, it was irresistible. The idea of a Hollywood actress turned duchess, possibly linked to one of the monarchy's most controversial figures. It was the perfect storm. Whether it held truth or not didn't even matter anymore.
And here we have Andrew, with whom looks like Marcus Anderson. This is in 2001, when Meghan Markle would have allegedly been on third year. Meghan Markle hardly spent any time at Northwestern University.
In the royal world, perception cuts deeper than proof. And once that seed of suspicion is planted, no crown, no title, and no PR team can fully erase it. And Fergie knew exactly what she was doing. She understood the weight of every syllable, because to truly grasp the shock of her words, you have to step into the dark, tangled shadow of Prince Andrew, a man who once stood as a royal hero, but became a living reminder of scandal and shame. For years, Andrew drifted through life wrapped in untouchable privilege, moving from one luxury escape to another, basking in the glow of power, money, and status. From Mediterranean yacht parties to private island getaways, he lived like the rules never applied to him. Those who knew him spoke of a man addicted to indulgence, obsessed with reputation, and constantly surrounded by people too afraid to ever say no. But that royal fantasy didn't last. One by one, his elite connections started to rot in the spotlight. His ties to powerful financiers, his questionable friendships.
And I know what you're going to say. Maybe it was just that one trip. No, there were quite a few trips. There's actually quite a lot of pictures about them. There are 2 pictures that leaked.
They turned his name radioactive. Then came that infamous interview, the one that left the monarchy humiliated and the public speechless. In a single night, the prince's image crumbled beyond repair. By the time Fergie's alleged comment surfaced, the world already saw Andrew as the monarchy's biggest liability, the one royal even the firm couldn't save without paying a heavy price. And that's what made her words so dangerous. Because linking Meghan to Andrew wasn't just petty gossip, it was a direct hit. It painted her as part of the same storm the palace had spent years trying to bury. For Meghan, already divisive in the public eye, that connection was like a spark tossed into dry powder. Suddenly, her name wasn't just tied to drama, it was being whispered in the same breath as the royal family's darkest scandal. The very idea that Meghan might have once brushed shoulders with Andrew's infamous inner circle years before meeting Harry was enough to send shockwaves through the palace. For the firm, it was nothing short of a nightmare. Two of the monarchy's most controversial names suddenly tied together in one explosive narrative. No proof, no confirmation, just pure speculation that spread faster than wildfire.
It could be also happening that the royal family is saying, hey, if you put a book out about Meghan Markle and completely destroy everything and really tell the people how Meghan met Harry.
Andrew stayed hidden, tucked away from the cameras, while Fergie's words breathed new life into his shadow, stretching it straight across Meghan's carefully polished image. Because once Andrew's name slips into a conversation, silence isn't an option anymore. The world listens, and the palace panics. Normally, when Sarah Ferguson speaks, people lean in out of curiosity, expecting her usual cheeky charm. But this time, her words didn't amuse. They detonated. It happened during a discreet London soiree, a private gathering meant to stay off the record. Fergie reportedly leaned in with that sly, knowing sparkle in her eye and dropped a sentence that froze every glass midair. Let's just say Meghan was Andrew's first client. The tone was light, almost teasing, but the effect was electric. Every heartbeat in that room stopped. No one dared laugh. Those words carried weight, and everyone knew it. Within hours, whispers escaped the room, twisting into headlines. By dawn, journalists were circling like hawks, dissecting every syllable, hunting for proof, and spinning theories that could burn reputations to ash. What Fergie unleashed that night wasn't gossip.
She'd been a Deal or No Deal girl. She was calling herself a model, and she was starring in a show Suits. She used to charge almost $30,000 per trip, which is why she was making good money. It wasn't on Suits, it was on her yachting trips.
It was a grenade rolled straight into the royal court, and once it went off, there was no taking it back. Did Fergie mean client as a sly metaphor for Meghan's ambitious networking, or was she hinting at something literal? Something buried deep inside Andrew's controversial past. That one word was enough to set the media on fire. The ambiguity was delicious, dangerous, and irresistible. Every outlet, every commentator had their own theory, and none of them were kind. As for Fergie, she didn't confirm, she didn't deny, she just played the game. When reporters pressed her, she flashed that famous half smile, the one that says everything while revealing absolutely nothing. It was classic Ferguson, charm coated with mystery, wrapped in just enough mischief to keep everyone guessing. But behind palace gates, there was no amusement. Insiders say senior royals were furious, communications teams scrambling overnight to distance the firm from whatever fallout her little comment had caused. Whispers spread that Fergie had gone off script again, that she'd crossed the invisible line the palace pretends doesn't exist. But behind that outrage, there was an uncomfortable truth no one wanted to admit. Fergie knew exactly what she was doing. Her entire public life has danced between confession and chaos, and this time was no different. That so-called slip wasn't an accident. It was a calculated strike.
Harry also knows Meghan was on Jeffrey Epstein's yacht with Prince Andrew.
By linking Meghan's name to Andrew's infamy, she didn't just stir old gossip. She rewrote the royal story completely. Overnight, Meghan's silence began to look strategic. Harry's frustration suddenly made sense, and as the world waited for their next move, Fergie sat back and watched the storm she'd created swirl through every palace hallway, knowing one thing for sure. She'd just turned the royal narrative on its head. Just when it seemed like the storm was starting to calm, another burning question tore through the royal rumor mill. Why now? Every royal revelation has a motive, and Sarah Ferguson's bombshell was no random slip of the tongue. To understand why she might drop such a loaded statement, you've got to trace her long, complicated dance with the monarchy, a saga of exile, redemption, and survival that reads like its own royal thriller. Fergie has always been the crown's wild card. From her notorious toe-sucking scandal to her messy financial downfalls and public apologies, she's seen every shade of disgrace. And every time the palace tried to bury her, she came back smiling, gracious, but always calculating. No matter how far she was pushed, she found a way to stay in the spotlight, even if it meant rewriting her role in the royal story. So why mention Meghan now? Some insiders swear it's payback, a quiet revenge against the same institution that shunned her for decades but later rolled out the red carpet for Meghan.
This woman knows that she's in trouble with Fergie because she knows where Meghan Markle's bodies are buried. She knows that Meghan Markle has been yachting. In fact, they had friction because Meghan had originally set her sights on Prince Andrew, but she lucked out with the idiot Harry. Not in a million years did Meghan think that she was going to score Prince Harry. She thought she was going to score Andrew until Fergie put a stop to it.
To Fergie, that must have stung. Others believe it's not vengeance but strategy, her way of reminding the world that she's still a player in the royal game. And then there's the most cunning theory of all. Fergie might just be stirring controlled chaos to lift her own name back into the headlines. She's a master of timing, and she knows how to light a fire just hot enough to get attention without burning herself. Whether it's revenge, relevance, or both, one thing's certain. When Sarah Ferguson speaks, the monarchy trembles, and the cameras rush right back to her doorstep. It's entirely possible that Fergie thought she was protecting Andrew, trying to pull attention away from his tarnished name by lighting a brand new distraction. Whatever her motive, one thing is undeniable. Sarah Ferguson has always known the power of timing. She survived decades of public embarrassment by mastering the delicate art of selective storytelling, giving the press just enough to chew on while keeping herself too interesting to erase. But this latest stunt might be her boldest gamble yet. With a single sentence, she managed to hijack headlines across the globe, drag buried royal secrets back into the light, and, most importantly, put herself squarely back in the spotlight she's always craved. Whether it's brilliance or pure desperation, Fergie's chaos is never random. It's calculated, and it works. The question haunting everyone now is simple. What was she hoping to gain by setting this blaze? Was she trying to shield Andrew, remind the world she still matters, or burn bridges just to watch who runs for cover? Whatever her goal, the explosion she caused was immediate. The morning after her alleged comment hit the tabloids, Buckingham Palace went into silent lockdown. No statements, no briefings, just a suffocating wall of quiet thicker than the palace gates themselves. Behind that polished calm, panic simmered. Advisors darted between closed-door meetings, phones buzzed non-stop, and royal staff scrambled to manage a narrative spiraling completely out of control. Every branch of the monarchy suddenly felt the heat. Senior courtiers debated who should speak, who should stay silent, and who might secretly be next in the firing line. Because once Fergie's name is in the headlines, nobody in the royal family sleeps easy.
My opinion, in my analysis, and my experience of decades, this kind of analysis, for me is the real deal. If a photo such as this of Meghan Markle with Prince Andrew years ago surfaces, that will be quite an scandal.
Prince Harry was furious. According to a source close to his circle, the rumor didn't just sting, it humiliated him on a global scale. But he also knew that lashing out would only pour gasoline on the flames. Any outburst, any reaction, would feed the frenzy even more, and the palace sharks were already circling. Meghan, meanwhile, reportedly went into retreat mode. Cameras were avoided, public appearances postponed, and her team began working overtime behind closed doors, consulting lawyers, drafting quiet strategies, and preparing for whatever came next. Online, the couple's critics were having a field day, turning their pain into entertainment. The energy inside the Sussex circle was tense, almost electric, not just because of the accusation, but because of who had thrown it. Fergie wasn't a faceless troll or anonymous insider, she was family, and that made the wound even deeper. Behind palace walls, senior royals pretended to stay neutral, offering polite smiles while secretly monitoring every headline, every leak, every rumor. Damage control turned into a full-time operation. Advisors scrambled to redirect the public's gaze toward charity projects and official events, but no amount of PR polish could bury the story. Andrew's first client. That single phrase refused to fade. It hovered over the palace like thick smoke that just wouldn't clear. In the quiet corridors of Windsor, resentment began to boil. Some whispered that Fergie had gone too far, that she'd betrayed the family once again. Others suggested she might have been set up, pushed to say exactly what someone wanted out in the open. But for everyone inside those golden walls, one emotion bound them together: fear. Because if one sentence could cause this much chaos, what else might be waiting to surface next? Fear swept through the palace like a cold wind. The thought that another royal scandal, this time tied to Meghan, could reopen the wounds left by Andrew's disgrace was enough to make even the most seasoned courtiers nervous. The monarchy runs on control, secrecy, and perfect choreography, but this time that control was slipping fast. By dawn, Buckingham Palace was a war room in pearls and panic. Aides rushed through corridors carrying folders marked "You are," their faces tense but trained to smile when spotted. Behind those polished doors, meetings stretched for hours as everyone tried to contain what was quickly becoming an unstoppable storm. The firm's golden rule: never explain, never complain, suddenly felt fragile, almost laughable. Sarah Ferguson's reckless remark had detonated across global headlines, and once again the royal family's reputation was under siege. Inside private offices, damage control moved with military precision. Advisors crafted carefully worded no-comment statements, while senior royals debated whether to publicly distance themselves or just let the chaos burn itself out. But deep down, they knew this wasn't just about bad press anymore. This was about trust. Because Fergie's comment hadn't come from a stranger or an opportunist, it came from inside the royal circle. That betrayal hit harder than any tabloid lie. It was personal, and it shook the foundation of the family more than the press could ever guess. Sources close to Harry say he was deeply unsettled, torn between confronting Fergie himself or letting the lawyers clean up the mess. Meghan, on the other hand, vanished from view, her silence echoing louder than any statement could. And as the world dissected every gesture, every absence, one question kept circling the palace like a vulture. Was this just another rumor, or the beginning of something much darker? Even the palace staff could feel it. The tension hung thick in the air. Doors were closing faster, voices dropped to whispers, and every smile looked just a little too practiced. Inside those golden halls, even one wrong word could become tomorrow's headline. Courtiers desperately tried to redirect attention back to royal duties, scheduling photo ops and charity appearances, but the public wasn't fooled anymore. The story had grown teeth, and it was biting deep. Every polished grin, every handshake carried the weight of what wasn't being said. The firm was holding its breath, praying this scandal would fade like all the others. But this one felt different. Because for once, the danger wasn't coming from the outside world. It was growing from within their own bloodline. As the chaos began to settle, or at least pretend to, one chilling truth remained. Nothing inside the monarchy would ever be the same again. What began as one offhand remark from Sarah Ferguson had spiraled into a full-blown crisis of loyalty, image, and power. The line between truth and rumor had blurred completely, leaving even insiders questioning who they could trust. Meghan's silence still loomed like a storm cloud over the palace. Harry's trust in the system seemed shaken to its core, and the royal family, once again, found itself haunted by ghosts it thought it had buried long ago. Maybe that's just the curse of the crown. Every time they try to control the story, the truth finds its own way out. And when it does, it's never gentle, never quiet, and never forgotten. Another royal secret is bubbling to the surface, and this one might burn brighter than anything before. The real question now isn't whether Fergie went too far, but what else she's still hiding. Because if this is what she's bold enough to say out loud, just imagine what's still being whispered behind those palace walls. Every rumor, every guarded glance suddenly feels like a clue. And trust me, the next twist will leave you speechless. What Fergie's unleashed has already shaken the crown's foundations, but we're just scratching the surface. If you thought this story was wild, wait until you see how deep the next one goes. The truth has a way of slipping through even the tightest royal grip, and once it escapes, there's no putting it back. And before you go, don't miss what's coming next on T-Torch, the channel where royal secrets get lit up like never before. We're diving straight into how King Charles's calculated power move blindsided Andrew and sent royal loyalty spiraling out of control. You won't believe who got caught in the crossfire this time. So hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because the next royal shock is already on its way, and trust me, you'll want front row seats when it drops.